What's up, everybody? We're on a podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about James Gunn's comment on DC games. So this is obviously a couple days old. I saw this. It's been an insane freaking week, so I want to thank you guys, for watching these videos. But I didn't want to let this one go because it's a tease. It's maybe not anything like absolutely massive, but something's cooking back there, and I want to talk about, in this video, what he could be alluding to and try to almost do like process of elimination. So this was actually, I think, through Games Radar themselves. They talked to him, I think, leading into Peacemaker Season 2. And so the main quotes are this: there's been some slight movement on different things. We have a couple of little DC games coming out, but we also have talked about, and in early stages of planning, some bigger things. One thing in particular I'm excited about, but it does take time. There's been some changes to WB Games, so we're dealing with new people. And of course, if you recall, that has happened. The former head of WB Games is out, new head is in, and things are different. People are in different positions, I think, running like WB Montreal, and it is in flux, but hopefully, and I want to trust it. I don't know, I really like James Gunn. I listened to a lot of his interviews. He seems like an honest guy, and he just seems like a guy who's gonna kind of tell you if a movie project isn't going right. He feels like he's the kind of guy who's gonna kind of say it, and he has kind of said it before. When a script just isn't good enough, he'll answer random fans, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever that is, and he'll be pretty honest. So it's odd that gaming is so secretive, right? But he's probably your best shot through a random Instagram question to get into the gaming world than anything else, because it is so secretive. But I feel like he would probably tease something beyond what you would get normally. He might tease one day, let's just say, he might tease a Justice League game before you would really expect them to be teased, just because that seems like the kind of guy he is. So, okay, really two parts to that. One part is, okay, well, he talks about a few little DC games coming out, and we can talk about what that actually means, also what it doesn't mean, in my mind. So, okay, well, it's interesting that Lego Batman, okay, the game we just talked about a few days ago, pretty big deal, at least to me. That game looks awesome. Made a video on it. I'm ready day one, okay? I'll be playing that thing immediately, as will, I feel millions of other people. It's gonna be a seller, at least I think. It's interesting that is probably one he's talking about when he talks about little DC games, because he talks about the big ones or early stages of planning, and then the one he's really excited for. I'll talk about that in a second, but that sounds okay, well, it's obviously years away. The ones he's thinking of, the ones that they probably sat down to say, okay, let's really, and by the way, I think Superman is one of them. I really, really believe, based off what he's doing, I think he's making 4 films, right, for the Superman saga. Doing that, he's Superman, is such an important thing to James Gunn and this new DC universe, okay? So I feel to jump, I guess, to that part, when he talks about getting together and really planning those big things, and then the one thing he's really excited about. Now, is he really excited about a Superman game, or is he really excited about something else? That, I think, is a pretty big question. I think it would not be guaranteed to be a Superman game. Although, I think when he talks about, this group of, say, big things, I think Superman could potentially be one of those. I guess the thing is, this fictional Superman game is probably not one of these little DC games. Funny enough, Lego Batman is one of them. Now, I actually picked this one behind me here, right, Injustice, to illustrate a point. I wonder what he thinks about Injustice, because I really do believe that NetherRealm will probably... Now, I guess here's a question, though. Will NetherRealm do what would be considered an Injustice 3, continuing their Injustice 1 and 2, or could they do a whole nother Injustice and actually tie it in some way to James Gunn's universe? Is that actually the plan? Basically, is it actually going to be called 3? But another question would be, I believe that's going to happen. I think they're done with Mortal Kombat for the time being. Okay, I think they're going to take a break, do one DC game, and then probably go back to Mortal Kombat. That's my belief. If you do that, is that a tiny game? Because if it's not a tiny game, then it's basically, again, this process of elimination. If it's not a tiny game in James Gunn's, verbiage, then that means it's years away, because that's what, he talked about other games that are years away. So I feel like NetherRealm moves pretty fast. I feel like you could get an Injustice as early as potentially next fall, if not the following year, 2026, 2027. is that far away for James Gunn? I mean, look, earlier this year, he talked about, I think, at least a few years away. That was his line, that some of these games that he's in discussions with these studios are at least a few years away. A few, like a couple means two. A few technically should mean like 3 or more, but a few in his mind could be 2, could be 3, could be anything. You know what I mean? So, and that's the thing. That's the interesting thing with having a guy on the outside. This is not a guy who makes games. This is the guy who's just in charge of like keeping everything straight. How does he? And I know we're nitpicking words, but I think that's the point. That's like the fun thing here. I guess that's just where my mind's at. I guess the only other question I would have, we talked about like what could that one big game. I thought Justice League was the first one to kind of jump into my mind. I don't know if that's something that would really excite him. I mean, he's really pushing for Wonder Woman, just from like, what we've seen with, moving the writer off of Teen Titans to go to Wonder Woman. So maybe it's that's almost like kind of disrespectful to say out loud. Maybe it's a Wonder Woman game. Well, we had one of those and then we sadly got that ripped away from our cold dead hands. So maybe it's that, probably not. Maybe I've always petitioned for Teen Titans. I don't know how much Teen Titans means to him. Look, he seems like a big Batman guy and he seems like a big Superman guy. So Superman could be that one big game, and that could be 3-4 years away. By the way, though, who's making it, right? That's another question as well. You only have so many teams, and who's making what, right? So I don't know. And I guess the only other final thing to say is what are the other smaller DC games? So like you have Lego Batman. Do we know of any others? So there's like that mobile game one. I've never played it. I don't want to play it. But there's that mobile game one that's always on like ads on YouTube videos. That looks like an experience for sure. But like, is that one he's talking about? But that's already out, right? So I don't know. Like, that's a plural thing. It's more than one in terms of these little games. I don't really think Lego Batman should be considered little, but I guess to him maybe it is. But are we getting more? Maybe we're getting some like literally smaller experience. Maybe it's like a remake of Asylum. Is that considered a little game? It's again nitpicking his words, but he does kind of break down like, all right, maybe a couple small games in the next few years. Well, Lego Batman has to kind of be considered that. So what else could be? And then, okay, well, after say 2 years, say we're in 2027, going into 2028, are we talking about a Superman game? Are we talking about a really large-scale Batman game? Are we talking about this collection of multiple superheroes together? Like, what are those really big things that are obviously years away? Like, what are those games that are so far away, but he's able to kind of bring them up now, but obviously not by... He's never going to give you major things on it, but he can kind of sprinkle it in, which is really what we got. So, I don't know. I don't know if this really went anywhere, this video, but just an interesting way, I think, of looking at his comments, and I guess there's more to come. I think that's one of the biggest things. He doesn't get asked about DC games much, but there's at least a few smaller games in the next couple of years, and then hopefully we get some bigger games. Within 5 years, we should hopefully have like a good collection of like 3 to 5 where maybe some of them can be like legitimately huge, and then some smaller experiences, as long as they're good. I don't really care. By the way, small games like a Telltale style thing versus like a huge game like a Suicide Squad. I don't care what style you do as long as it's good. And that's kind of the problem here is you've had very few shots at it, and then when you do, most of them don't work. And then also ones that were about to come out where maybe they stood a chance, maybe not, say Wonder Woman, you don't actually give a chance to because you shut it all down. So it hasn't been smooth sailing. It can actually really only go up from here, and that's the good news. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and hope to see you all on the next one.